Good afternoon, Mrs. Anthony.
Good afternoon.
Ma'am, you also lived on, let me rephrase that. You used the computer at your home, correct?
Which one?
The desktop computer.
Yes.
And that is, where's the desktop computer located?
It's now our spare room. It used to be Lee's bedroom.
Okay. And the computer, everyone in the house has access to this computer?
Yes.
And who used the computer at the house?
Everybody. Anybody that was at the house that needed to use it, or even friends of Casey's used the computer.
Do you recall in March of 2008 you doing any types of searches for any items that might include chloroform?
Yes.
And could you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury why you did that?
Well, I started looking at chlorophyll, and I was concerned about my smallest Yorkie. We have 2 Yorkie puppies. And the smallest one was having some issues where she was extremely tired all the time. And both of the dogs would eat the bamboo leaves out in the back. So I started looking up sources from the backyard that could potentially cause her to be more sleepy than it would affect the larger dog. And I started looking up chlorophyll, and then that prompted me to look up chloroform.
Okay, now, I don't understand how you could get those two mixed up.
Not getting them mixed up. If you look into chlorophyll, there's some bacteria associated with chlorophyll production, and looking up that, it comes from different species of plants that have red and brown coloring, and that prompted me to look up chlorophyll because some species of algae and seaweeds and stuff produce naturally chloroform.
Okay, and how do you know that you ran these searches in March of 2008?
Because I also ran a few other searches at the same time in March. There was a scare about using hand sanitizers around small children. There was an email that went around my employee at my work. One of my nurses had sent me an email knowing that, Caylee was of age that she could be affected if we used hand sanitizer, and she got her hands on it. And that scare came out in March. And during the same time frame that I was looking up the issues about the dogs, I was looking up ingredients in the hand sanitizer, the alcohol, and then that prompted me to look up other things that we had in the house, like acetone, hydrogen peroxide, rubbing alcohol.
Did you run any other types of searches during that time frame that, and I'm specifically referring to March 2008, that might have to do with any types of injuries?
Yes, a good friend of mine was in a car accident and had multiple chest and head injuries and had a lot of blood loss, and I was looking up specific terminology that someone had asked me to look up. And at work, I don't have access to the regular internet. We had our own Gentiva internet, so I had to do those types of searches at home. I couldn't do it at work.
It's interesting you bring that up. We have your work records and evidence, and it shows that you work pretty much a regular schedule during that time period.
I took a day off during that time period. Usually during the month of March, a couple important holidays fall in that time frame, and typically I would take certain holidays off because I had 6 weeks of vacation. And
why would your work schedule show that you were working?
Could have been an error if my supervisor filled out my time card in my absence, if it came on a day that our time cards would turn in.
I'm going to object to the speculation.
Sustained.
Could your work schedule show that you are working and you actually be off? Has that, I'll rephrase it. Has that ever happened?
Yes, it has, and I'm also salaried, or I was salaried. So even if I put 4 hours in one day, I would mark down 8 because another day I might put in 12 or 14, and we were not allowed to show overtime. All we were supposed to show 8 hours of work each day. Supervisors were not allowed to show any overtime for the corporate. We were instructed never to do that. So we were supposed to only show a 40-hour work week, and my normal day was a 9-hour day. So by the end of the week, I would always have overtime.
Okay. I'd like to show you State's Evidence 79 and State's Evidence 80. May I show these to the witness and publish
Yes.
to the jury, Your Honor?
Yes. You showing which one now?
I'm showing State's Evidence 79.
Thank you.
I don't know if, well, I'll publish this in. Is there any way I could get rid of the glare a little bit? See how it's showing quite a bit of glare. Mrs. Anthony, do you recognize this photograph?
I'm guessing, but it looks like it could be the trunk of the Sunfire.
Well, I don't want you to guess, so I'm going to show you States 47. Actually, let me zoom out a little bit. That might help. Does that help you at all?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the trunk of a car, and the car looks like it's white.
I'm going to show you another photograph. States Evidence 47. Is that the Pontiac Sunfire?
Yes.
And where was this car purchased?
Where?
Yeah, from who?
Oh my gosh, I know it was on West Colonial, one of the dealerships out there. I'm not sure what the name of the,
Who purchased the car?
George and I did,
Okay. And when?
in 2000.
Okay. And then who drove the car?
Mainly George and Lee, but we purchased specifically for Lee.
Okay. And how long did Lee own the car?
We got it for him when he was a junior in high school in 2000, and then he drove it until I think 2005 when he got his Mustang. I think it was 2005 when he purchased his Mustang.
And after that, it was then passed along to Casey?
Pretty much George or Casey would drive it. They had a car that they had a Corolla, and once they sold the Corolla, then they drove that car.
I'm going to show you State's Evidence 80, which is the trunk of the Pontiac Sunfire, a little bit of a close-up. Can you see if there is a stain in the trunk of that car?
There's a faint stain, yes, I see it.
Okay. And have you seen that stain before?
Yes,
Where?
when we bought the car.
So it's your testimony that this stain was there when you bought the car?
There was a few little stains in the car when we bought the car, yes.
And when you saw the car again on July 15, 2008, and you sprayed the Febreze in there, did you see any other stains in addition to the ones that weren't there previously?
I think there was an indentation of a gas can temporarily.
Was it a cylinder type
Yes.
stain?
Yes.
Would you say that it would be consistent with this cylinder type?
Yes.
That would be the state's 283, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Has everyone had a chance to look at? If I can have just a moment to double check.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mrs. Anthony, is it your testimony that despite the fact that your work records show that you worked on Monday, March 17th of 2008 and Friday, March 21st of 2008, that you were home between the hours of 1:43 p.m. and 1:55 p.m. on March 17th of 2008?
It's possible, yes.
Were you home on March 17th of 2008 between 1:43 and 1:55 p.m.?
If those computer entries were made, then I made them. I was home. I know I took some hours off. During that week was Casey's birthday and my anniversary, and I did go home early a couple days.
All right. Now you have to work at 7:30 to 5 typically?
My hours are whatever I make them to be. I had to be there at least from 8:30 to 5 o'clock, and then my hours got extended within 2 hours. Within 2 weeks after I started working, the hours got extended to 5:30. So when I signed up, it was from 8:30 to 5, but after I got hired, it was from 8:30 to 5:30. And I would always come a minimum of a half hour prior to and stay as long as I needed to.
All right. So it's your testimony today that it's possible that you were home on that day, even though your work records reflect something differently. That's correct?
Overruled.
Is that correct?
Yes,
All right. Even though your work records suggest or establish that you were working on March 21st of 2008, is it your testimony in front of this jury that you were home between 2:16 and 2:28 p.m.?
it's possible. I mean,
Were you or weren't you?
that day,
Overruled.
the only thing that triggers that day for me is those computer entries. It was not a traumatic day for me like the last 3 years, so I can't tell you exactly what time I went home. If I had access to my work computer, I could tell you when I left that day.
Have you looked in the last 3 years to determine what time you went home on March 17th of 2008?
I have not been to work since July 15th of 2008. I never returned back to my employer.
Do they still exist?
Yes, they do.
If you wanted to, you could go and find out if in fact you left work on March 17th of 2008, even though your records reflect that you didn't.
No, I don't think so.
They won't let you in the door.
No, that's not the reason. The reason is because I had a working password and I was an employee, and only I would know through my emails what time I left. And no one had a password to my emails, and I'm sure all those things have been lost by now.
You're guessing.
No,
You're
I'm not
guessing.
No, I'm not guessing
Let me
because
ask you this. On Friday, March 20,
And allow the witness time to answer, complete their answer.
Ma'am, did you complete your answer?
no, I did not.
Complete your answer, ma'am.
We had several passwords to get into our computer, and everything, I had at least 2 login passwords to my computer that only I had access to. It was against policy to give your passwords to even your supervisor. I also had a computer access password to my emails, And again, no one was allowed to get into my emails except me. And those computer passwords expire every 30 days. And without me being there to put in my old password to create a new one, no one would be able to get into my passwords.
Do you have knowledge as to whether or not your company backs up your emails?
I don't know if they would still have them 3 years from now, because the reason I say that is because our emails had a memory that only lasted so long, and it depended on how much was in there if we deleted them or not.
My question was, do you have knowledge as to whether or not your former employer backed up their emails on a regular basis?
Again, it would depend on the length of time that those emails were there. One office that I worked at, our company was nationwide. We were in 40-some states, and in each state there was many, many Gentiva locations. Ours was just one. And the capacity that each office could hold was a little bit. And every day we generated referrals, which came as emails for our patients, not counting the emails that I would get from other employees in the office and my staff. So there was only a capability that the computer could store those. So I do not believe that the company would still have the ones from 3 years ago. It would be virtually impossible to keep everybody's as a backup.
All right, you were aware of the fact that these computer searches were an issue as early as August or September of 2008, correct?
No, the first time I found out about the computer searches was with Detective Melich and Detective Allen coming to my house asking why Casey might perform those searches. And
When was that?
That was prior to Casey's arrest on check charges.
All right, so this would have been in September of 2008?
Whatever date that was, yes.
All right, I take it that you did not tell them that you made those searches, correct?
I did tell the law enforcement. In fact, I told you during my deposition in 2009 that I made those searches.
You told me at your deposition that you searched for chlorophyll, correct?
Yes.
And you spelled chlorophyll for me.
Yes.
You recall that?
Yes.
Do you recall denying that you made any searches for how to make chloroform?
I didn't look up how to make chloroform. I looked up chloroform.
Okay.
And I believe
Did
we
you
talked about it.
input into a Google search engine?
Excuse me, Ms. Strayburdick. I would ask that the witness be allowed to complete her answer before being
Ma'am,
interrupted by the prosecutor.
Did you finish answering your question?
I can't remember if she'd asked the question. And if she would read back what I said, then I might know if I had something else to say.
Okay. Madam Court Reporter, read back the last question and the last portion of Ms. Anthony's answer to her. And wait till she tells you to go ahead, Ms. Anthony.
Do you recall denying that you made any searches for how to make chloroform? Answer, I didn't look up how to make chloroform. I looked up chloroform.
Yes, I looked up chloroform, and when you look up chloroform, you don't have to look up how to make it. On there, it tells you what the chains are.
All right. You testified in the past that you looked up chlorophyll, correct?
Impeachment.
Overruled.
Correct?
Correct. At the same
And-
time, I looked up chloroform.
You suggested that the Google search engine asked you if you wanted to change the spelling of chlorophyll when you made this search, correct?
Correct.
Because you spelled chlorophyll wrong.
Correct.
Did you input the words into the Google search engine, how to make chloroform?
I don't recall putting in how to make chloroform, but I did Google search chloroform, and we talked about it in my deposition.
The question is, and it's a yes or no, did you type in to the search bar on Google, how to make chloroform?
This question has been asked and answered twice.
Overruled.
Did you type those words into the search bar on Google?
I don't recall typing in how to make chloroform. I recall typing in the word chloroform.
Do you recall denying that you searched for self-defense,
Yes, I did not search for self-defense.
household weapons,
I did not search for household weapons.
neck breaking?
I did not search for neck breaking, but I do recall that there was a pop-up that was showing a YouTube regarding a skateboarder that was skateboarding on rails, like if you're going, like a turnstile type rail if you're going into some place and the skateboarder. And I recall it saying a neck breaking feat.
Is this something that you're recalling now that you've changed your medication since July of 2009?
Again, it's not,
Yes?
no, I recalled that at the time, but you didn't ask me
Okay.
about, I answered your question specifically at that time.
Did
But my
we-
memory is better than it was when I had my deposition in 2009.
Yes, ma'am. Did we cover whether or not you did a search for the word shovel?
No, I wouldn't need to look up the word shovel.
All right. On March 17th, did you look up the word inhalation?
Probably.
Do you know?
There were several searches that I did that day. I also searched regarding the injuries too.
Alcohol,
Yes, I said
acetone,
I already answered Mr. Bias to that, yes.
peroxide,
Yes,
hydrogen peroxide?
yes.
Is this something that you've recalled since
No.
July of 2009, since your medication's been changed?
I recall doing that because of the email that I got regarding the effects if a child ingested hand sanitizer because of the alcohol content. That's why I looked up alcohol and I looked up those items because it triggered me to look up other household items that we used near Caylee. We painted her nails. I used acetone near her.
What search engine do you use?
Whatever's on the computer, whether it's Google or Yahoo.
What browser?
I'm not even sure what you're referring to.
When you turn that computer on, which profile do you use?
Our home computer, the desktop, we left on pretty much 100% of the time. It was rarely shut down. So usually if I had to go on, it was already on. All we had to do was just refresh it.
All right, so are you testifying you don't know which profile you used?
Profile regarding,
There are only 2 profiles on your computer. Do you know that?
are you talking about my laptop or
No,
the
that-
desktop?
We're talking exclusively about the desktop.
I
There's a
didn't-
user profile and there's a Casey profile. There's usually an icon when you turn it on and you pick one.
I don't
Do you recall
recall
that?
having to do that on my desktop. On my laptop, yes, there
All right.
was 2.
So on the desktop, you would not have entered a password, correct?
No, we did not have a password on our desktop.
Did you do searches for making weapons out of household products?
No.
Chloroform habit?
Chloroform habit?
Assumes facts not in evidence.
There's already been testimony about this, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Chloroform habit?
I've never heard that come up before, no.
Chloro and the number 2? Was that you?
Chloro 2?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I know there's chlorophyll 1 and 2.
Okay. Were you on druglibrary.org,
Oh, all the time.
instructables.com,
Don't know.
scispot.com/chloroform?
I don't know if it came up that way.
Were you on that website 84 times?
I was on it several times.
Were you on that website 84 times?
I don't know. I don't know. They need to look up how many times I was on the chlorophyll website and compare it to the chloroform website.
Did you do 84 searches for the effects of chlorophyll on your animals?
I didn't do 84 searches of anything, but I don't know what my computer does while it's running.
Okay. In March of 2008, you did not have a MySpace account, correct?
No, I did not.
Did you Facebook?
No, I did not.
If I may show and publish states 80 for identification. Your Honor?
You may.
Can you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Where's this stain that was in the car when you purchased it in 2000?
The stain was somewhere up in here.
I'm sorry. Let me clear that because I think I took it away too fast. Tell us again.
The stain was up in the top section.
All right, near the letter B? Closer
In
to the
front
letter
of-
B than the letter A and the dryer sheet in the back.
Yes.
I have no other questions of Mrs. Anthony. Thank you, Your Honor.
Redirect?
Mrs. Anthony, I got a little confused. I wanted to make sure. The password protection was on your work computer, correct?
I had password protection on my work computer.
But as far as
But
your
not at
desktop at home, there's no password for that.
No.
And would you ever go on the computer after Casey would use it?
The computer was left on all the time. So a lot of times I would come home, Casey'd be on the computer, and I asked her if I could get on for a few minutes.
And all of this stuff about chlorophyll and chloroform, you had told the prosecutors about that back in 2009, did you not?
Yes, I did.
And this is nothing new.
No, it's not.
Is this anything new?
Sustain as to leading. Rephrase your question.
Is this testimony anything new?
No, sir. I did tell the detectives and I did tell the state's attorney's office about the searches. And they knew that I had searched for chlorophyll as well.
No further questions.
Any additional questions? May the witness stand down? Thank you, ma'am. You may stand down.
I'm Sandra Osborne, Sandraosborne.
You may proceed.
Please, the court. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Sir,
I apologize. I referred to you as Sandra Khan.
former name, that's quite all right.
Okay. And you prefer Osborne.
Yes, sir.
And you are a detective
Yes.
and also a computer expert.
A computer forensic examiner, yes, sir.
Okay. Your Honor, I would ask that the court re-recognize Ms. Osborne as an expert in digital forensics, as previously designated.
What's that to say?
No objection.
She will continue to be recognized as an expert in that field.
Ms. Osborne, who is the gentleman that followed you in today?
Your Honor,
That-
I'm going to object. It's relevant.
I would think it is relevant, Judge.
Sustain.
The previous time that you testified, did you have another individual follow you in that time?
Same objection,
Sustain.
relevant.
Ma'am, you were the first person to receive the Anthony's desktop computer,
That's correct.
and you then did a forensic examination of that computer?
You're referring to the Hewlett-Packard desktop?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
And one of the things that you did, you were asked to run a keyword search for chloroform.
That's
You know.
correct.
And subsequent to that, what you ended up doing is you found a hit, correct?
Correct.
And then after that, you identified a unallocated space, a deleted internet history. Did you not?
Sustained.
Tell us what happened next.
You have to refine that for me.
Sure.
Next, after I found
After you found a hit for chloroform, what did you find next? What did you do next?
what I did with the search hit that I found for chloroform,
Correct.
I identified it as a deleted internet history file, and I turned that portion of data over to my Sergeant Kevin Stinger.
And did the two of you consult on this matter?
He is my supervisor and my mentor. He supervises everything I do, so I worked with him and he mentored me through the process, but he worked with that, with the other witness that you've heard from before, John Bradley. So yes, I watched his work do that, but I was not directly involved with that.
Prior to that, did you recover the internet history using a program called Net Analysis?
I did, yes.
And then what that is that's a competing, well, let me rephrase it. Is that a competing software to this new cashback software that Mr. Bradley testified about?
It's a different forensic tool that we use that is widely recognized in the computer forensics field. Its functionality is slightly different. It's a different tool. I don't know if I would say it's competing, but it's a different tool that we use. We use both.
But they both accomplish the same thing. They help you reconstruct or re-get the internet history that's deleted.
It allows us to view the internet history.
Okay. And what you do with that information is you then, I guess, put that on an Excel spreadsheet?
With the net analysis, I don't do the reporting typically with the net analysis reporting feature because sometimes a large history file will be hundreds and hundreds of printed pages. It's just easier to export it out to an Excel spreadsheet so I can manipulate the data that way. Manipulating meaning collapse a column I don't want to look at or expand a column I do want to look at.
Okay. You don't change the data, you just are able to view it differently.
That's correct.
Okay. And when you did that, you turned that, of course, over to the prosecutor's office?
I would have submitted that with other reported documents and items to the detectives, which
Okay.
I'm assuming went to the prosecutors at some point.
I'd like to then show you what is marked as Defense Exhibit DF. May I approach the witness, Your Honor? May I approach the witness?
You may.
That's a disc labeled.
Objection to the counsel testifying. There's an improper predicate.
Do you know what that disc is, ma'am?
Actually, I've not ever seen this disc, and that is not my handwriting.
Okay. Do you have with you, you were asked to bring with you all of your files, correct?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Do you have that portion which we were speaking about with you?
No, this label says Firefox from unallocated space.
She said that's not her handwriting. She's never seen it.
Sustained.
She's identifying the item in her hand, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Okay. Do you have the item that we requested that you bring?
I did not work on this particular item. This is what I turned over to Sergeant Stinger.
Okay. And did you put together the Excel spreadsheet that you just testified about? Let me see if I can show you a printed out version. Does that appear to be a portion of the Excel spreadsheet that you prepared?
I believe this is a document Sergeant Kevin Stinger prepared. If this refers to the deleted Firefox history from the HP computer, this would have been that chunk of space from deleted space with the search hits that Sergeant Stinger and John Bradley worked on.
Okay. Do you recall issuing a report in this case?
Of course.
Okay. On October 20th, do you indicate that you prepared this Excel spreadsheet?
If I could refer to
Yes,
the
please go ahead
report
and
you're
read.
referring to.
Sure.
I issued 2 reports in this case. Can you refresh which one you are referring to?
I'm sorry?
Which report were you referring to? There are 2.
Okay. I'm referring to the Firefox header.dat. Oh, which report are you referring to? The one, I believe it's your second report where you indicate summary of findings after August 20th, 2008.
And are you referring to in the middle of the paragraph where it says I exported evidence internet history HP desktop folder as
Correct.
Firefox header.dat?
Yes.
Yes, that's the portion of the deleted Firefox internet history that I copied out and then showed to Sergeant Kevin Stinger, and he worked on it from there. That's correct.
And then do you indicate the net analysis report was exported and saved?
That's correct, I did.
Okay. And then do you indicate that it's an indicator that lists the internet history, correct? Why don't you review that portion and tell us what you're indicating there on your report?
Your question's a little vague. This refers to the deleted Firefox internet history where I found the search hit that you asked about.
Correct.
I exported it out of my in-case report where I was working so that my sergeant could copy it to his thumb drive or whatever he copied it to, I can't recall at the moment, so that he could take it back to his machine and work on it.
And then the next paragraph, right there where it says the Excel spreadsheet displays.
Yes.
Okay. What does it display?
My report says it displays in column format the URL page, the file's first access and last access dates and times, an indicator of whether or not the URL was actually typed by the user, and how many times the web page was visited. And then sites visited more than once will display different dates and times in the date and time column.
The list that I gave you, can you read the exhibit number on the back, please?
Identification D Delta F Foxtrot.
I'd like for you to take a look at your screen. Do you see that?
Yes,
Okay. Do you recognize that as the Excel spreadsheet that you recovered from the Firefox unallocated space from the HD desktop computer?
this is in a different format. The printed format and the format you're showing me on the screen is different than the one I would have exported out. And the reason I know that is because the columns in this spreadsheet that you're showing today are actually expanded to show all the data inside the columns.
Right.
The one I exported out, the columns are compressed and you have to expand them out.
Okay. But other than them being spread out so you can read what's there, you recognize this, correct?
I recognize some of the content, yes.
Okay. And does this appear to be a fair and accurate representation of that spreadsheet?
As best I can tell, yes, sir.
Okay. Judge, at this time, we would move Defense Exhibit H. If I may approach the witness again. Yeah.
What says the state?
Based on the witness's answer, I would object to the use of this document, she said, as best she can tell, as opposed to having knowledge that this is a fair and accurate copy. She said this was not the one that she prepared?
I believe she,
Sustained, you need to ask a few more questions.
Yes,
It's
sir.
not certain at this point. You may.
Ms. Osborne, I'm going to show you the original. That was a highlighted, the portions that I wanted to discuss with you. I'm going to actually show you the original that was turned over to us and see if you recognize that. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Does this appear to be the URL, the Excel spreadsheet that was prepared?
I believe Sergeant Stinger prepared this spreadsheet, sir. I don't believe I did this. This does
Okay.
not look like the format that I would have prepared the sheet.
So even though your report indicates that this is something you did, you're saying Sergeant Stinger did this?
My report specifically indicates that I found the search hit, I identified the Internet History file, I copied it out to a different location than the computer forensic software I was working in, so that it could be saved to a thumb drive and moved to a different computer. The spreadsheet that would have been created, highlighted, manipulated from there would have been Sergeant Stinger's work and not my work.
Okay. But you reviewed this, correct?
No, sir.
You've never seen this before in your life?
I did not work on this document. This is not my document.
Okay, very well. Judge, at this time, we have no further questions for this witness.
Any cross-examination?
One question. The HP computer had a password, correct?
Yes, one of the user account profiles did have a password.
All right, it's correct that the owner account or the owner profile had an assigned password of Rico23 that was set on May 14th of 2008, correct?
That's correct.
That's all I have at this point.
You wouldn't have to enter in a password if the computer was left on, would you?
It depends on the settings on the computer. If the computer is set to hibernate or go to sleep or reset itself, then yes, you would after a period of time. But if it's not reset and it just stays open, then any user could log in.
Okay, no further questions. We would excuse the witness subject to recall and ask that she stay, Your Honor.
Ask that she stay here and return to her office.
Stay here. We may recall her shortly.
Okay? Judge Osborne, you may stand.